You are looking at the most shocking hypotheses. Perhaps the only educational project in which we can talk about the most incredible versions, shocking hypotheses, mind-blowing riddles, revelations and hoaxes without compromising our reputation. So, today in our program you will see the video of the expedition's flight to Mars has been declassified. What was that? The project was called the Red Sun. Military psychics have established contact with space. Who did they communicate with? There are traces of civilizations that existed in the past. Curiosity digs deep. What is hidden in the Martian sands? Apparently, these are residential complexes, but again, they do not look like terrestrial buildings. For many years, the special services of the leading countries have made tremendous efforts to catch at least one alien. Declassified archival materials that were at the disposal of our program contain information about dozens of special operations to search for UFOs, about chasing saucers, about attempts to get in touch with other civilizations. We tried to figure out whether the military is fooling us or, in turn, they are being led by the nose, by representatives of other civilizations. What does official science think about this? What are the alternative versions, hypotheses, that do not yet fit into the usual ideas in the reality around us? This is the most shocking hypothesis right now. These amazing shots produced the effect of an exploding bomb. It is claimed that they were removed from the manned space station in the early 70s of the last century. But the most shocking thing is that this is supposedly the filming of a joint expedition of the USA and the USSR to the planet Mars. Watch carefully. Has it really already taken place? The moments of the approach to the red planet and the flight over it are recorded on a unique film. The video was released by Italian journalist Luca Scantambulla, who claims that he was personally acquainted with the participant of that mission. The project was called the Red Sun. It was a joint experiment of the United States and the Soviet Union. The mission started at the end of 1971 year. Astronauts have successfully reached Mars. It was a reconnaissance flight. They collected samples and flew back to Earth. According to the journalist, 2 years after the return of the first expedition, in August 1973, the main mission started on the Red Planet. It was supposed to create a long-term scientific base there. However, some time after landing, communication with the astronauts was lost. Could this incredible information be real? And what could have happened to the participants of the Red Sun project? And most importantly, why was it all classified? Not Venus, not Mercury, not other planets, but Mars was chosen precisely because it is a special planet that has a special meaning for us in our solar system as the most suitable for colonization and for creating, as they say, a reserve site. So, the Italian journalist Lucas Contembulla claims today that he has the confession of at least one American astronaut, that allegedly in the mid-70s there was a manned flight to Mars. Moreover, he was Soviet American. It's hard to believe, but the fact remains. It was at this time, namely in 1972, that the American Automatic Mariner Station was photographing Mars. About 3,000 images were transmitted to Earth. However, the domain of the scientific community was only about 500 pictures, and all other NASA to publish was not, under the pretext that they did not have anything interesting. Or maybe just the opposite. Maybe they didn't publish them because there were too many interesting things on them. So interesting that these pictures were classified worse than the most important state secrets. What did NASA employees see in the pictures, which it was decided to classify? However, it was in these images that the researchers found a lot of strange objects that could have an artificial origin. Maybe the Mariner station was used to determine the landing site of the same joint Martian expedition. But the most incredible image 4 years later was made by the Viking research apparatus. In just 76th, 77th year, a lot of pictures with Mars was. It was just Cydonia that all the satellites photographed, and, among other things, found this face and all kinds of pyramids there. The black and white photographs clearly showed four-sided structures, incredibly similar to the terrestrial pyramids of the Giza Plateau. But most of the questions were raised by the image of a human face on the surface of Mars, which later became known as the Martian Sphinx. Researchers put forward a shocking hypothesis. And what if the main task of the Red Sun project was to establish contact with the Martians? The same NASA in its archive has a large number of photographs of Mars, including those devices that reside on Mars, where certain man-made objects are present. But the most amazing thing is that this version has recently received unexpected confirmation. The US Central Intelligence Agency has declassified several million pages of previously closed documents. Among them, the researchers found materials from the Stargate project. The specialists of the Stargate project studied the effect of clairvoyance, farsightedness. They were trying to scan the surface of Mars. During the Cold War, the CIA was actively engaged in projects that were aimed at exploiting the hidden potential and capabilities of the human psyche. The special services tried to train their operatives in special techniques for obtaining information over long distances. In addition, especially crafted at a military base Fort Meade in Maryland, the group was engaged in the study of telepathy, telekinesis, extrasensory perception, and other paranormal abilities. The effectiveness of telepathic intelligence has been proven, and such experiments were also conducted in the Soviet Union. But only today it became known that the Americans were not limited to intelligence in the USSR. When I started working in the US government program, which is now known as Stargate, it existed from the 72nd to the 95th year. I joined at the end of the 75th and was senior researcher in the field of physics. With the help of my knowledge of physics, I tried to understand how it works and how to improve it. However, the specialists of the Stargate project had to perform very unusual tasks. The declassified CIA countdown describes an unusual experiment in which one of the leading psychics of this project, Joseph McMoneagle, participated. At the end of May, 1984, McMoneagle was woken up by one of the agents and handed him a sealed envelope, which was forbidden to open until the job is completed. The psychic was asked to concentrate his efforts on the information inside the envelope, while the CIA agent verbally transmitted the required coordinates to him. Here's what McMoneagle himself tells about it. I would say it looks like something like a pyramid. Very high, it stands in a kind of lowland. The color is yellowish, ochreous. The agent then asks him to mentally travel in time to the level specified in a sealed envelope. The psychic describes a dust storm and a hurricane, which, according to him, are the result of a geological catastrophe. Again, mentally moving through time at the direction of the agent, he describes large smooth objects, walls and corners of enormous size, which he calls megaliths. I am at the bottom of a deep canyon. I look up and see a huge steep wall that stretches in both directions to the horizon. A building is carved into this wall. Huge buildings without any ornaments, just huge sections of smooth stone. The psychic reports that he sees several large pyramids. The CIA agent notes on the record that the psychic begins to lose the ability to concentrate from fatigue, and offers to give him the opportunity to explore his visions without reference to coordinates. After that, he instructs the subject to mentally enter one of the pyramids. There are many different rooms inside, but there are no furniture or objects in them. It's just a functional hibernation space. I can't determine very raw information. I see storms, terrible storms, and sleep during a storm. Then the psychic mentally follows a group of inhabitants of the planet who are trying to find a new place to live, but find themselves on another celestial body with volcanoes, seismic faults, and strange plants. The agent asks to establish contact with one of the aliens, but the subject replies that he does not make contact, since the psychic seems to him only a hallucination. After that, the CIA officer returns the subject to the present time with a voice command. May 22, 1984. What do military psychics know about aliens? There was a meeting with representatives of extraterrestrial civilizations. What did people and representatives of another mind talk about? They were absolutely similar to people. After the end of the experiment, the psychic was allowed to open the envelope with the coordinates of the place where his consciousness went. Inside was a small card with the following information. The planet Mars. The observation time is approximately 1 million years BC. We need to get reliable information, intelligence information about what kind of reception they can get, how serious a rebuff they can get, and in general, really a priori, there is no threat, even without a physical invasion of Mars.
Не существует ли некая угроза даже без физического вторжения на Марс?
But the most striking thing is that McMoneagle was given the coordinates of the exact place on Mars, where the pyramids are located for research. But why was this information so important to the scouts? If we recall the entire history of attempts to explore Mars with terrestrial space probes, then we can understand the reason for which is concerned. No one has sent invitations to fly to Mars. So it turns out that we act as such uninvited guests. Well, as you know, uninvited guests are not very well met. Indeed, 1960, the first Soviet apparatus sent to the Red Planet burns up in the atmosphere. The reason is engine failure. After that, 3 more Martian vehicles die. During the test, everything goes according to plan, and after the launch, the equipment seems to be haunted by evil rum. 1969 year. Another Soviet station takes off from Baikonur. After a few seconds, she falls, the rocket engine failed. The next flight prepares for a long time and carefully. The Mars 2 spacecraft should be the first in the world to make a soft landing on Mars. The umbrella safely reaches the planet. The descent module separates from it, but a second later, a catastrophe occurs. It's as if a powerful hand grabs the device and breaks its petrified surface. Researchers believe these are the tricks of the Martian. They shoot down any spaceships that do not have, well, let's say, an identification signal of their own someone else's. Yes, that is. They do not have an identification signal of their own. And since, let's say, civilization has not existed for a long time, automation works offline. It was done well, qualitatively. Automation still works. In May 1971, a new interplanetary station is sent to Mars. It safely leaves the Earth's orbit, but without switching to the trajectory of interplanetary flight, it disappears into space. The next attempt is literally in a few days. And again problems. Engineers are doing everything possible to prevent failure. The connection can be established. The probe lands on Mars and begins transmitting a video signal. After 20 seconds, the signal is suddenly interrupted. The device disappeared without having had time to look into the Martian secrets. After all, life was very active there. There was a certain Martian civilization that died as a result of some kind of catastrophe, and, most likely, did not die completely, but somehow reformatted. Perhaps some of these inhabitants remained there on the planet and live somewhere in the bowels, underground. All attempts Earth spacecraft to explore the surface of Mars fail. Perhaps it is for this reason that the American intelligence generals decided to use their unusual method, to attract military psychics to the experiment. If there are traces of a civilization that existed in the past, so it is quite possible that there are some artifacts that relate to the military industry that existed to military subjects, or artifacts that have a dual purpose. Therefore, the CHI's interest here, it is also certainly justified. But few people know that similar military research was conducted in the Soviet Union on remote acquisition of information. Only here their results were much more shocking. This project was led by General Alexei Yuryevich Savin. He, heading the secret military unit 10003, created on the instructions of the General Staff of the Ministry of Defense of the USSR for these tasks. General Savin is alive and well today. It was from him that we heard this fantastic story. The essence of it is that the operators of the secret laboratory, which was headed by General Savin, once managed to develop a method for connecting to information fields. It was she who, according to him, allowed to receive unlimited data about any person or object. However, unexpectedly, in the course of one of the experiments, some unknown intelligent forces knocked on the consciousness of his subordinates, so I will carefully put it. It seems incredible, but, as the general himself tells, they were identified as representatives of an alien civilization. In other words, a certain civilization observing our planet decided to get in touch with Savin's group. According to the participants of that experiment, at first there were long telepathic conversations, and then these extraterrestrial intelligent beings even scheduled a personal meeting. However, this is how General Savin and his former subordinates talk about it today. Such contact took place. There was a meeting with representatives of extraterrestrial civilizations. 4 women are taking part from our team in this conversation. The conversation was lengthy. In the Moscow region, where the contact was supposed to take place, a group of military specialists found a large flat circle. All the trees within that circle lie in the same direction, like on top of them dropped a huge disc-shaped object. Valentina Sidorova was one of the participants in this amazing experiment that day. According to her, she entered the circle and suddenly found herself inside a spaceship. A huge number of screens, all kinds of devices, glowing buttons of some kind. Well, that was enough, to be honest. And it was also very soft and comfortable for some reason. Here is a feeling of softness and comfort from everything that was there. According to Earth time, the contact lasted about an hour, but Valentina Ivanovna believes that she was inside the ship much longer. However, the researcher was waiting for another incredible surprise. The pilots of an alien spaceship decided to show itself and appeared before the military. They were absolutely human-like. The only thing that, of course, can be said about the height there, because it was more than 2 meters. But it struck me with a steely look. There was nothing human in the look at all. Just a steely look. Not bad, not good. Many details of this contact are still classified. However, experts nevertheless agreed to disclose some details. According to them, military specialists were given information about various options for the development of the future of our civilization. One of these options was a global planetary catastrophe caused by humanity itself during the World War. But this is not an experiment, this is an observation of our development. Sooner or later, it will still be in contact. However, there was no further contact. Having checked the level of training of military researchers, the aliens showed that they appreciated our achievements. At the same time, they made it clear that the current level of human development is at the level when we can either begin to explore deep space or completely destroy ourselves. And when we were convinced that the contact was good, that there were no negative consequences from this contact. Of course, we began to journalize this information and submit the leadership of the Ministry of Defense, and the leadership of the country as our conclusions. The President's awareness of reasonable activity outside our planet was confirmed at the meeting of the two heads of state. According to the memoirs of those present, the American President made a serious offer to the President of the USSR about cooperation between the two superpowers, in case the Earth is threatened by an alien invasion. In 1985, when Gorbachev met with Reagan, including the external threat was discussed. Well, what kind of external threat could there be for the USSR and the USA at that time, except for some kind of alien threat, which, in principle, they were talking about? And it was about joining efforts to protect, because there was information that some aliens were present. But where could this mysterious threat come from? From deep space, or unknown aliens were nearby in our solar system. Another confirmation of this hypothesis was made with the help of the Soviet space station Phobos. In 1989 year, the first domestic attempt to launch vehicles to the surface of the satellite of Mars ended in failure. The first Soviet space station Phobos 1 immediately disappeared, and the second, Phobos 2, managed to transmit strange images to Earth before disappearing. A moving huge object in the shape of a spindle. When the second Phobos 2 satellite flew up to Phobos, before it began to shoot, it began to turn around. That is, when it arrives at the place, it occupies a certain position in orbit and had to turn around. He started to turn around, and before turning around, he took off the shadow of a large object that flew up to him. They say there was about 20 kilometers of an object, a huge object of some kind. But few people know that the Soviet automatic station managed to transmit other amazing pictures. My dear viewers, over the years of our acquaintance with you, we have told you so many different things about space, about alien civilizations, about UFOs, that it's time to systematize this information. And we did it. Guests from outer space in this book. For the first time, we took all the existing versions, hypotheses, and separated the plausible from the fantastic. They outlined what kind of alien life scientists see, based on the already discovered laws of physics, and what so far exists only in assumptions. Of course, all this is in our programs, but if you need conclusions, they are here. Where do the huge tunnels on Mars lead? These structures are most likely artificial, too. And where are the ruins of cities preserved there? Apparently, these are residential complexes, but again, they do not look like terrestrial buildings. A hypothesis is an unproven assumption that explains a phenomenon without which it is inexplicable. A special infrared camera was installed on Phobos 2, with the help of which the device managed to take several dozen pictures. Before losing communication, Russian scientists were able to see objects hidden right under the surface layer of sand. Look at these pictures of the Martian surface. An amazing drawing appeared under the sand. Its straight, geometrically correct lines, covering a huge area, resemble the outlines of a city. Dr. John Clackham of the London Science Museum analyzed these images. He stated, "The city-like object is 6 kilometers wide and may well resemble Los Angeles when viewed from above." Have scientists managed to discover another proof of the existence of an intelligent civilization on Mars? One might think that the most significant thing was that we now know that there were buildings and structures on Mars. But we hope to find something else, because the buildings themselves are uninformative. According to researchers from the Paranormal Cruise Group, they have discovered the ruins of an ancient city on Mars. A video proving the find was published on the internet. Looking through photos of the red planet, which were taken by orbiting Martian vehicles and then posted by NASA on special sites, they came across an image of the surface of Mars, where the ruins of an ancient city are clearly depicted. Dilapidated buildings were found on top of one of the Martian hills. Despite the severe damage to objects as a result of the impact of the Martian climate, the structure of the geometry of the objectors is clearly traced, which indicates their technogenic nature. The authors note that if you look at the modern Bedouin cities in the Sahara, they will partly resemble these Martian ruins. But if this is really the ruins of an ancient city, and not another game of imagination, then the find will be another proof of the version of the existence of a certain highly developed civilization on Mars in the past. In the archives of various organizations that in one way or another are related to the exploration of Mars, not only Americans, but also in other countries, that there are photos there that depict some not natural formations, but clearly artificial formations, artifacts. I think that this, in general, is no longer in any doubt. John Brandenburg is a well-known specialist in plasma physics. He has been engaged in space plasma technologies, space traffic for many years, and has long been known in the world. As a Mars explorer, the scientist's Martian theses were accepted for consideration at a serious conference of planetary scientists and astrophysicists in the 2015 year. And to be honest, they shocked everyone. We found structures, not only a face, but also pyramids, and a fortress, and the ruins of an entire city. And we found other artifacts together, which is called utopia. These structures are most likely artificial, too. They are all on the north side of Mars. Structures like Cydonia or Elysium, all this looks like arrays of man-made structures. Mars has had a climate similar to Earth for a long period, and a biosphere as well. It all makes sense. After analyzing the known data about the red planet, the scientist came to ambiguous conclusions. There were two ancient civilizations on Mars in the past. Its representatives were known to our ancestors as Utopians and Sidonians, and in their development, corresponded approximately to the civilization of Egypt. As for other structures, it seems that these are residential complexes. But again, they are not like terrestrial buildings. There are completely different living conditions. Therefore, buildings should look different than here on Earth. And they look amazingly natural. They are embedded in the environment, so they are very difficult to recognize. According to Dr. Brandenburg, in the recent past, life on Mars was destroyed as a result of a nuclear war. This is evidenced by data from the surface of the planet. As scientists explain, the Martian surface is covered with a thin layer of radioactive substances, including uranium, thorium, and radioactive potassium. They are like hot spots on Mars and are well recorded by modern telescopes. But the most striking thing is that the greatest concentration of radioactive elements is located in the area of the Cydonia Valley, where the Martian pyramids are located. Something very unnatural has happened. And when you see evidence of a dead civilization, it's very mysterious. When we take into account the possibility of mind intervention, the number of disaster scenarios increases several times. And one of the possibilities is a nuclear war on Mars, just like in Star Wars. Also, according to Brandenburg, the Mars Express space station has discovered dark-colored structures similar to volcanic glass on the northern plains of the Red Planet. Brandenburg suggested that the Mars Express had found none other than Trinity nuclear glass, which appeared on Earth after testing the first atomic bomb in the Nevada desert. What was the cause of the catastrophe that turned a planet rich in water and oxygen into a dead realm of dusty buoys? Scientists have been trying to answer this question for a long time and not out of curiosity. This will help to understand what threatens us, since ancient Mars was like our Earth, like 2 drops of water. Planetary scientists believe that life on Mars disappeared as a result of a sharp change in climate. And this in turn was due to the rapid disappearance of the magnetic field of Mars. It was as if he had been blown away by an unknown cosmic wind. Then there was some terrible cosmic accident, a collision with another planet or a giant meteorite. The blast firm which was so strong that all of the planet's atmosphere safely into space, and the planet has changed beyond recognition. But if there really was a grandiose space or military catastrophe on Mars, then the remains of its inhabitants can still be preserved on the surface. And such photos really exist. In the 2014 year, the Curiosity rover sent an absolutely incredible picture to Earth. Objects similar to fossilized bones have already been discovered, and some of these fossils look like the bones of small rodents. It can be seen that they are symmetrical and have an anatomical structure. You can see the eye sockets, jaw, bone crest, nasal bone. It's amazing. But the Martian pyramids undoubtedly raise the most questions for researchers. Look carefully at these detailed images of the surface of Mars in the Cydonia area, obtained by an American orbital aircraft, which made a number of unplanned maneuvers in the 1997-2000 years, with the sole purpose of taking detailed photographs of this territory in order to identify the pyramids. But again, it must be borne in mind that these are not the pyramids that we see on Earth, and therefore it is very difficult to compare. We have 4-sided pyramids here. As for other structures, it seems that these are residential complexes. But then again, they don't look like Earth buildings. There are completely different living conditions there. The opinion of researchers about the origin of the pyramids is divided. Some consider them to be natural formations, formed as a result of weathering of volcanic or sedimentary rocks. Others see their education as the will of reason. Disputes do not subside to this day. However, there are other striking artifacts in the Martian images that confirm that the inhabitants of the planet could have survived the disaster. What is the mysterious object on Mars? It is quite possible that this is really some kind of ship. Where does the earthly symbolism come from on another planet? An interesting question arises: are there aliens among us? Researcher Mauricio Ruiz said that on the NASA website, he managed to find a frame depicting a UFO on Mars. However, the picture was subsequently deleted. The ufologist believes that in this way planetologists have tried to hide the information they have long known about alien spaceships on the red planet. According to Ruiz, he managed to copy a photo from the NASA website. In addition to the UFO itself, you can see a spot on the frame, which, according to the conspiracy theorist, could appear when the spacecraft landed. Proving that the picture he gave was taken by a rover, the ufologist urged to pay attention to the traces of poem, resembling those left by rovers. Few, even serious scientists, doubt that Mars was once inhabited by a highly developed civilization. There are theories that we came to Earth with Mars. While studying the archive of images of the space probe, researcher Efrain Palermo discovered an unusual photo, an object resembling a spaceship in shape. The furrow dug by the ship in the Martian soil during the fall is also visible. The smooth surface of the device is split in one place, where it hit the rock during its fall. The researcher suggested that judging by the resolution of the original image, a UFO, or something similar to it, has 100 meters across. It is quite possible that this is really some kind of ship because, well, like meteorites, they are all of such irregular shapes. And here, roughly speaking, a meteorite simply cannot be of such a shape, it would crumble, break. And here it is a flat enough object that is hidden thicker than some sand, but it has a certain shape. There are even portholes visible. Another mysterious picture was provided by expert Scott Waring. He is sure that the photo is proof of the existence of a UFO that crashed on the surface of Mars. From the fall of the object, traces on the Martian surface are still clearly visible. Waring believes that the structures he found cannot be the result of natural processes on Mars. Look, in this photo, also presented by the indefatigable seeker of alien artifacts. The device itself is already perfectly distinguishable. In shape, it surprisingly resembles flying saucers, which ufologists like to talk about so much. A researcher from the USA found a UFO with a propeller in the pictures of Mars. According to the expert, it appeared on this territory relatively recently, since he carefully studied the photos from the area for several years. According to him, the UFO is located in one of the craters of Mars. The image of the mysterious object was taken by means of an orbiting telescope. The photo clearly shows that the unusual object landed recently, as fresh traces of its blades remained on the surface. But if it's a true photo, then I think it's something. It may be quite possible that some kind of alien ship. Very interesting photo. Another mystery was presented by the camera of the Mars-orbit spacecraft, which photographed an unknown object that crashed on the surface of Mars. According to experts, the device fell on the surface of Mars between February 2012 year and June 2014. They came to this conclusion because this place had already been photographed by remote stations before, and this object was not there. As can be seen in the image, the UFO left very clear dislocations of the impact crater, and is easily visible against the general background, standing out from the general landscape as a dark spot. The researchers are sure that this disc-shaped device is of artificial origin. This is also indicated by the sun's glare reflected from its smooth, possibly metallic surface. But even more questions gave scientists a recent picture taken in June 2018, a rover to Curiosity. During a planned panoramic survey of the surface of Mars, a huge rectangular object hanging in the air got into the frame. NASA has not commented on this picture yet, thus causing even more questions from supporters of the existence of a Martian civilization. Perhaps the American agencies NASA and the CIA have facts in favor of the existence of intelligent life on Mars. And such an unexpected neighborhood with an unknown civilization, literally at our side, causes the military quite reasonable concerns. especially if we recall the obvious reluctance of certain forces to allow our spacecraft to explore Mars. The researchers said another unusual fact. The high activity of UFOs appeared exactly at the time when the United States and the USSR began developing atomic weapons. Nuclear tests conducted on Earth could well have been recorded on Mars. And if we assume that the biosphere of Mars was indeed destroyed by a similar weapon, the appearance of such a destructive force among Earthlings could well alarm our neighbors. Some researchers are sure that UFO activity on our planet is not connected at all with guests from distant galaxies. Low-shaped apparatuses may well be messengers of the Martian civilization. I think it really was a problem that America faced very quickly in the second half of the 40s, because if they made public all the facts that they became aware of, it could really cause panic. According to experts, the American Stargate project could pursue another goal. It is known that military psychics were trained primarily for remote espionage. Also, the training program included special techniques that allow you to exert a mental influence on people. But perhaps these abilities could also be used to establish contacts with the Martian civilization. We went parallel, we didn't start earlier, but nevertheless, we quickly caught up with them and overtook them. Here, Bekhtyrev's technique works well. Here, but I believe that they had contacts, of course, with alien civilizations of various kinds. Any intelligence structure always uses a variety of channels to receive and transmit information. It is quite logical to assume that along with traditional methods of exploring Mars, the CIA could train specialists for contacts with its possible inhabitants. How they reacted to this, how they reacted, is another question. Exactly what they wanted from these contacts, where they developed these contacts. But the most amazing thing is that Soviet specialists were trained in the same way. The tasks of General Savin's laboratory included not only questions of classical intelligence, but also obtaining information of a completely different kind. Space operators. We adopted this name right away, that girls, you are not psychics. Most likely we will be called space operators. The work involves the reception of clean, reliable, and a large amount of information on various issues. Researcher Valery Uvarov puts forward another striking hypothesis. He is sure that the American space exploration project could have another purpose. And despite the fantasticism, it is this version that can explain many of the mysteries that connect the ancient objects of Earth and Mars. But the real task of this project is absolutely different. The problem is that the very name of this project carries with it Stargate, that is, the Stargate. That is why for the mass of people, for the layman, stories are told about the research of human parapsychological abilities. In fact, we are talking about the search, detection, and study of the so-called Chrono-Corridors. If Uvarov's version is correct, it becomes clear that the CIA is so closely interested in the Martian Valley of Sidon, on which the pyramids are located. The possession of such technologies will allow any country to have unlimited opportunities at its disposal. First of all, by becoming a monopolist in interplanetary travel. In our time, this is extremely important because Mars is considered primarily as a springboard for further colonization. The Stargate project is closed, it doesn't quite correspond to reality. I want to repeat once again, officially yes, but unofficially it is still developing. Because it provides civilization with enormous opportunities, one of which is the ability to move not only a person, but also an object from the surface of the Earth, for example, to the surface of Mars without the need for a star flight.
С поверхности Земли, например, на поверхность Марса без необходимости совершения звездного перелета.
NASA plans to send another manned expedition to Mars in the 2030th year. The main task is to prove the existence of life on the red planet. By the 2020th year, the joint European and Russian ExoMars program should determine the landing site. But already many researchers are expressing a bold hypothesis. An interesting question arises: are there aliens among us? Do they live? There is. They live. Yes. They acquire the appearance of a person one-to-one. Yes, and they live just like us humans on this earth. Humanity has found itself in a strange situation today. On the one hand, no scientist takes the responsibility to declare that we are alone in the universe. But on the other hand, there is no reliable evidence that there was anyone else in the universe besides us. And just recently, an event occurred in the scientific world that should put an end to our doubts. There is life on other planets, or at least there was. And I'm not saying this, but a world-renowned scientist, the founder of synthetic biology, Stephen Denner, who for the first time officially declared that Mars was once inhabited. But what are the proofs of the famous scientist? We will tell about this in our next programs.